So since the trend underconsumption core took off, I've made a couple YouTube videos about it. I wanted to explore what are the trends when anti-consumerism becomes popular and when it's not, and why that might be. And I've also talked about the benefits of underconsumption, but I continue to get emails asking me to answer questions for interviews for media outlets about underconsumption core. It seems people are really interested in it. It is still trending. And so I think it's kind of an interesting topic to talk about. I have been talking about being anti-consumerism on this channel for as long as it has existed, and that's kind of the big umbrella I see underconsumption fitting under. I talked about that in this video if you want to go check it out, but basically there's the big umbrella of anti-consumerism, and then there is things like minimalism, eco-minimalism, de-influencing, anti-hauls, underconsumption core, and I think all of that kind of fits into the bigger theme of anti-consumerism. And I've seen a lot of interviews, media things, lots of videos on TikTok, commentary channels, even on YouTube. People are talking about how underconsumption core has gone too far, it's missing the point, yada, yada, yada. There's been a lot of criticism and also complimentary commentary on the underconsumption core trend. So I thought I would add my opinion on why trends like this are absolutely a necessary evil, if you will. You don't get the culture shift without different sorts of trends and awakenings and aha moments coming from people all across the spectrum when they see something come across their phone because it is trending. So obviously you can watch the videos on my channel for free, and I hope that they teach you something, but I do take on sponsors oftentimes for things that are essential in our lives, and that includes things like food, body care products, and in this case, cleaning products to clean your home. So I want to say a huge thank you to Blue Land for sponsoring this portion of the video. Let's get into why they are actually a really great brand. Couple quick updates since we're going to be in this bathroom. Number one, can you hear that? I talked about on my Instagram story about how we're getting gutters installed and how there's like a lot of drama with the company. And I was gonna update you once they're done, but they're literally working on it outside this window right now. Second thing, for my recent bathroom essentials videos, I mentioned that I was getting my hand soap refilled at a local place that no longer exists. So enter the sponsor of today's video, Blue Land, and this foaming hand soap that can be put into this forever bottle. No single-use plastic in their products, their packaging, their shipping materials, all free of single-use plastic, which we love to see. In addition to having no single-use plastic, all of their packaging is also recyclable or compostable. These little tabs are what you use to refill a lot of their products, in particular their foaming hand soap, which is the thing that I want to show you how you do it. You take your forever bottle and you fill it with water, and then you're going to add one of these tabs. And once you add the tab, you don't have to shake or anything like that. It's actually really peaceful and mesmerizing to watch because the tab actually flips itself. Highly recommend watching tabs dissolve. The foaming hand soap is my favorite, but all of their products are hypoallergenic, vegan, cruelty-free, and they also are free of so many ingredients that you might be trying to avoid for one reason or another. They have no phosphates, no chlorine bleach, no parabens, no VOCs, no ammonia, no phthalates, and no GMOs. I also have been talking a lot about tightening up my budget recently, and these are really affordable. The refills start at just $2.25, and then you can save more money with either bulk options or a subscription, which is also really convenient because then you never run out of your most used products. So if you're ready to make your routine a little more eco-friendly, you can check out Blue Land with the link at the top of my description, and you can get 15% off of your first kit. Okay, back to the topic at hand. Trends like the underconsumption core trend really just pump the brakes on the already fast-moving train that we are on of overconsumption, especially in the US. And I think that's really good because it kind of eats at that ingrained idea that consumerism is normal or good or healthy. And without trends like that, some people literally might never ever even think about it. Hence the necessary evil paradox. And what's also interesting about seeing this topic trend is that there's been so much commentary about that's just normal consumption, right? Like people on one side of the conversation are like, we're calling this under, but that's just like normal people. And that's totally valid because then there is this whole other group of people who are like, I don't want to live like I'm poor. That is not aspirational. I don't want to do that. And that's a huge part of the internet because the normalization of consumerism on the internet is rampant. And since I've been kind of seeing both of these sides as this trend has been going on, I've seen a few videos that really call this out to me, and I wanted to react to some of them before we jump into the reasons why I think trends like this are the necessary evil. Actually, I think these are great examples as to why we need more trends like this, because this is some stuff that's happening around the internet, whether it's in your bubble or not. it exists. And also the numbers don't lie when we look at consumerism in the US, but I digress.
I have a serious question. What do you think is going to be the shoe for autumn? Because last year for me, it was the Birkenstock Bostons. I want to get ahead because now's a good time to buy them before they sell out when everyone wants them. So tell me, what is the shoe I need for autumn?
So to me, the problem with the underlying idea here is not the fact that she wants to buy a pair of shoes. It's the fact that she wants someone to tell her what to buy because she wants to predict what's going to be cool ahead of time. This video has millions of views and hundreds of thousands of likes. A lot of people think that way. And the idea that someone else can tell you what is going to be cool before you even think it is, before you even want it, is wild. So that's like a great example for me of why trends that tell you not to consume in that sort of way is really, really important, because this is obviously a way that enough people think that I was able to find this video that has plenty of positive recommendations and comments on it.
Let's be financially responsible.
And again, I think this sort of mentality is really problematic, especially because in this case, it's presented as let's be financially responsible, which to me implies that people are spending money that they can't afford to spend on things that are not necessities. And that sort of normalization is really unhealthy and problematic and also not good for the planet. So that's just a little taste of why I think trends are absolutely necessary to combat the contrast of what's happening on the internet with consumerism. And I also think trends like underconsumption core are important because it starts to make you question, well, why is consumerism a problem? And if you've never heard my spiel, okay, you probably need to hit the subscribe button because you'll probably like it here. My philosophy is basically that we should buy as little things as we can new because they have a pretty significant impact on the planet before it makes it to us, right? And when we buy things and we vote with our dollars to tell the brand that we want to see more of XYZ thing, overconsumption and unnecessary consumerism really have a really big impact on our planet. As a matter of fact, well, we're gonna talk a lot about the impacts it has on our planet, our mental health, all of those sort of things. But on this channel, we talk about underconsumption, anti-consumerism from an environmentalist perspective, because if we buy fewer things, we're inevitably having a much smaller impact on the planet. It's not just about what happens to my phone after I'm done with it. It's really more so about how was that phone mined? Who was impacted by it? What happened to the soil and the water? Were they mined for the minerals to make this? How much energy did it take? How much pollution did it create? All those sort of things happen before you buy it. But my goal on this channel is to look at consumerism from an environmentalist lens and also to get you to give up consumerism for community. And if that doesn't really make a lot of sense to you, it might by the end of this video or if you watch a few more. So I'll link some in the description. I think there are three big overarching reasons why consumerism has become so ingrained into our culture. And then there are kind of some sub reasons why. But the number one reason, at least in my experience, and let me know if this is your experience, but it is searching for dopamine, because consumption lights up the reward system within our brain, and our brains haven't quite evolved from when we were hunter-gatherers to where we are now to understand that we don't need to buy and consume everything that we see that we like, because we don't live in scarcity, at least in the places where overconsumption is a problem. And whenever we buy something, it triggers dopamine releases, which tells our brains to keep going back and keep doing it. And underconsumption can kind of contrast that by getting rid of instant gratification and trying to find more longer lasting, fulfilling ways, less environmentally destructive ways of finding dopamine. It is a lifestyle shift to shift away from the way that you find happiness and fulfillment to something else. Like, it's not something that happens overnight, but it is something that the process of it will only really start once you have an aha moment, which I hope that underconsumption core has given some people. And in the same way that I think that happiness and dopamine is like one of the big reasons why consumerism has become so ingrained in our culture, so too is because of the way of convenience. I've talked about this in a few videos about how consumerism makes us lonely, but it is more convenient to just own all of the things that you could ever need and not have to leave your house to borrow or to rent something. And it also gives us a sense of control and relief in those ways that we can buy something that makes our life easier and it's our choice and we do what we want. I can buy whatever I want. All of that stuff kind of, I think, falls under the same category of shopping for dopamine, for ease, stress relief, control, convenience, and comfort, right? There is definitely a certain level of consumerism that will make your life more comfortable. There are diminishing returns. There are plenty of studies out there that show that after a certain amount of your needs are met and then wants that you are able to acquire under a certain income is usually how they talk about it. But after a certain level, the means are diminishing, meaning that your happiness, your comfort, your stress does not change beyond that level of consumerism. And I think the term retail therapy really highlights this, that people shop for their mental health a lot of the times. Speaking from experience, I definitely did that when I was younger. I definitely know people in my family who do that now. That is a huge part of why consumerism has become such a staple in our culture. So another umbrella, I think, is that we consume to fit in. And I actually went a lot deeper into this topic, and I could talk about this topic for hours on end, but I have a video called Why Consumerism Makes You Lonely. And the reason that I think that is, and why our culture has shifted so much to a consumerist-centric culture, is because we fit in and we find communities in a lot of ways based on what we are buying. And that can be if we're buying stuff to look like we do a certain hobby. That can be if we style ourselves in a certain way as to be perceived in a certain way. And like in that TikTok that we saw earlier, the girl asking what shoes are going to be cool for fall, she just wants to fit in. Not necessarily are you a part of that community because of your similar struggles or things that you care about or interests that you have. We no longer really build community based on those things, which is a human need to have community and for it to be built on those things. At least that's my opinion. The caveat that it needs to be built on those things, that's my opinion. And social pressures, like the video that we watched earlier, play a huge role in consumerism, I think, in that way. And I do think that's also a reason why I used to be what I call a hyper consumer. Like, I would buy so much stuff. I know what it's like to be stuck in these cycles. And so when I see people on TikTok, on YouTube, talking about how underconsumption core and that trend is like kind of putting not buying things on a pedestal and putting poverty on a pedestal, and people who are like showing off that they didn't buy something, it's really flipping that kind of thought process on its head. And people criticizing that, I don't know that they understand the purpose of it, right? Because just bragging that you didn't buy something does seem like kind of random if you don't understand the purpose behind it, which is to kind of break these cycles of consumption and find more meaningful connections to people and the community around you and things, and for your mental health and for the environment. Like, there are so many reasons why someone would show off under consumption. But when we are on this trajectory of fitting in and building community based off of things that we buy, well, something has to interrupt that cycle and that trajectory. And I think trends like this are what do that. And then under this umbrella of the need to fit in being one of the core reasons that I think consumerism is so strong in our culture, is also FOMO, or the fear of missing out, which we definitely saw in one of those TikToks that we watched earlier where the girl was like, I need to get them before they become popular and they sell out, and then I can't get them. And then I can't portray to the world that I am a good consumer or I am part of this community. I quit fast fashion in 2011, and I have not looked back since. And there are different parts of my life where it comes to friends and family that I just don't align with because of whatever the activity or the consumerism is. I just don't align, and I still experience that FOMO, fear of missing out. There are certain things I just remove myself from, certain forms of consumerism, because I think they are unethical and problematic. So I also have a fear of missing out in those things as well. And under the umbrella of need to fit in, there is the form of self-expression and identity. It has been ingrained into us that the way you identify and the way you self-express, or at least one of the ways, and one of the most common ways, and the ways that you can buy yourself into, is consumerism. Like I said, projecting who you are via what you wear instead of via the things that you do or the things that you talk about or the community that you belong to. It is now expressed through clothing in a lot of ways, sometimes in your home decor, a lot of times through social media. And so that's another huge part of consumerism. And also status and achievement. So there's a more insidious cringy form of consumerism, in my opinion. That is, we buy things to show the world that we are high earners, or that we can afford them, or that we are better than XYZ person. In majority popular culture, it is cool to be wealthy, to buy things that are unnecessary, to spend money in a way that you just have nothing else to spend it on, so you spend it on silly expensive cars or bags or shoes and those sort of things. And then there is the entertainment factor, which I know I said that the first one that we covered, which was dopamine, was one of the biggest reasons I was consuming. But as I'm going through these three big reasons, I do think that I identify strongly with each of them. And I'm still curious if you identify with all of them or one of them more. But I do think that my relationship with consumerism is and was tied to dopamine. I do definitely think it was my need to fit in and be cool and be seen as someone who cares about how she looks, or that she looks cool because she's not repeating an outfit. And I definitely think that consumerism was a form of entertainment for me, which is the third big umbrella. The activity on Fridays with my friends was going to the mall and going to Forever 21. That was my shop of choice. I know that a lot of people shop online now, and so going to the store for entertainment is not so strong, although I will say that I still do think going to things like Target is a form of entertainment. Like, people go there because they are bored. I do still think this form exists, but I think more so entertainment being a big part of why consumerism is a big part of our culture now is also because people will scroll on TikTok and look at hauls. People will watch YouTube videos for hauls to see what the cool thing is and what they should buy, and that even just watching people buy and then use stuff is a form of entertainment now. I honestly want to make a whole video about this topic, but if you really start to pay attention to people who share their daily lives, they daily vlog, they make lifestyle content on any of the social media platforms, it is largely about consumerism. As a creator who has been on this platform for a long time and been anti-consumerism for a long time, it is very hard to make content about your life if you are not talking about consumerism. If you are not constantly buying things and showing people how to use them and talking about why they're so great, it is really, really hard to show your life in an entertaining way. Because my hobbies, since they have shifted from consumerism, it's just not as flashy, it's not as cool, people don't want to watch it as much. Things like gardening and volunteering, crafting, those sort of things take so much time and energy, and it's not as quick as like I click this link and I bought this thing and I put it on and look at me now, and you can click a link and do it too. It's also the aspiration and the relatability that makes shopping the reason that lifestyle content exists and is a form of entertainment. That's what makes it so easy to do and really hard to do lifestyle content without doing that stuff. What you own is now, like I said, a very big form of social bonding, and where you shop and who you watch and who tells you what to shop and all those sort of things are forms of entertainment. And yeah. So those are the three big reasons that I think consumerism has become a part of our culture because of our own psyches, like you and me, and how our brains work and how our culture and society like kind of functions. But there's another really big umbrella on top of all of those umbrellas that kind of led to this sort of socialization, and it is the need for the economic structure that we live under to need continuous growth. Our economic structure will not be able to exist if not for unnecessary forms of consumerism. If we only buy the things that we need, our economic system would collapse. That's like scary and also just really problematic to think that if we do not rely on these forms of unnecessary consumerism and continue to extract resources from our planet and burn them up and use so much energy and pollute into our air and our water and our soil, if we don't continue to do all of those really destructive things to the ecosystem that human beings rely on, we wouldn't be able to maintain the economic structure that we have. And so because of that, unnecessary consumer spending is the backbone of the American economy. And that is the reason that we have been sold that we should buy things to fit in. We should buy things to make us happy. And it's perfectly fine to look at buying things as a form of entertainment, is because we kind of have to do it to live in the society that we currently live in today. We live on a finite planet, and consuming unlimited resources forever just to keep the graphs going up and to maintain the economy of unnecessary consumption that we have, we can't maintain that forever. It is quite literally unsustainable. And that's why I think trends like underconsumption core to disrupt this cycle that I just outlined for you pretty clearly. That's why I think trends like that are a necessary evil, because at some point we have to wake up to the fact that the things that we're doing are literally unsustainable in a very matter-of-fact way, in an objective way. We cannot continue on this way forever. So I hope you learned something today. So I'm gonna leave you off with that, but I definitely do wanna say a huge thank you to Blue Land for sponsoring this video. It helps me create videos like this without having to promote unnecessary forms of consumerism. And I wanna leave you off today with a really important message, which is do your best, but also advocate for the rest. Okay, bye.